Hello again, my ravens, and welcome back to this series of a Pagan Rants on. And in this one, we will be covering the chilling adventures of Sabrina, episode 2, The Dark Baptism. Now, let's not beat about the bush and just dive right in so we can get this misery over with. So this one just continues from the ending of the first episode, where Blackwood, the high priest of the Church of Knights, attempts to persuade, let's leave it at that, Sabrina into signing the Book of the Beast on her dark baptism to join the Church of the Knight. Now, the entire thing is just blatant manipulation, and fortunately, Sabrina picks up on it a little, but there are certain questions and certain things he says that makes her doubt whether or not this is actually true. And she still has doubts because she asks her Aunt Hilda about her own doubts, if she ever had doubts about her own baptism, and, well, Aunt Hilda says yes. To which her sister, Zelda, murders her. Because you're annoying, you said this, you said that, you're supposed to say this to Sabrina, not to give her any further doubts, so hey, I'm going to kill you and then I'm going to bury you into the cane pit. So yeah, that annoys me quite a lot. It's complete ridiculousness, and considering the fact that this is supposed to be about satanic witches, and I'm just sitting here thinking, well, aren't you just ruining everything for yourselves? Then there are scenes where the misogynistic footballers tear down the Wicca posters. And no, this one unfortunately is not referring to the religious belief system, but a feminist society that Sabrina, Roz and Susie founded in episode 1. And there is this whole segment in this episode about how they're going to fight back against these boys and how it's going too far, and quite frankly, some of these parts, they are not adding anything, in my opinion, to the story, and quite frankly, it sometimes bores me to tears, because this is the umpteenth episode and umpteenth season that tries to highlight misogynistic bullying. And quite frankly, if you're going to do this properly, please I would like to see something else and not continuous repetition of the same dilemmas and the same problems. It's serious, yes, we get that. But please, just keep it out of this story. You're not doing yourselves any favors. Anyway, regarding the witch who was murdered, whose story was started in episode 1, he still does not get his dues done for him, because his murder is still yet unsolved, but he's still going to be buried anyway, and this whole thing seems to be shoved under a rug. It's ridiculous. There is apparently no evidence, apart from the fact that he has multiple stab wounds on his body, that would you can tell that he has been stabbed at least 10 times by a sharp object. And the fact that the Greendale police seems to be unable to note down these very basic facts and try to even establish who could have done this, or even write anything, even a simple idea about what the murder weapon could be helpful. It could be an athame, since if we're going to keep this whole witch and this whole witch thing going, then why not say athame, because that's the witch's knife, and it would have been one of the most obvious weapons to kill a witch, for crying out loud. It's not rocket science. It frustrates me. To be honest, if they had done more about the murder of this witch and how this relates to the entire story, I would have been more interested and I wouldn't be so angry. But they didn't do anything with it. Someone had a brain fart and put this in and then went, whew, that stunk, okay, let's move on. Let's just air out the window, let's just open the window, air out this room and not come back to it, because hey, brain fart. Anyway, Sabrina at least redeems herself a little because she eventually tricks the teared down, shat upon version of the weird sisters from Shakespeare into helping her teach the boys who have been tearing down the Wicca posters and bullying her friend Susie into teaching those suckers a lesson. Now, she attempts to lie to these sisters to trick them by saying she won't end up at the Academy of Unseen Arts if they help her out. They agree. And yeah, the next following scenes I genuinely think could have just been deleted because they added nothing. The trick wasn't obvious. The whole plan was just completely botched. And I think the writers just went along as they wrote, to be perfectly honest. And I sat there thinking throughout these little scenes, like, what am I supposed to be looking at? What am I supposed to be looking at? I'm just going to grab this book next to me because, quite frankly, it's a whole lot more interesting than what is in front of me right now. And besides, it's unnecessary. It didn't scare me, and I bet it wouldn't scare the boys in real life either. Not really. Well, the nicking of the clothes part and taking the photographs is a bit messed up, but hey, they weren't any better. So I suppose I could say, okay, yeah, fine. This is a bit over the top, but fine. And that scene ends up with the weird sister saying, "Hey, you're not so bad. You're quite devious. You're quite tricky. You're quite cunning. Maybe you're not as bad as we thought." And I'm sitting there thinking, I want Draco Malfoy and Ethel Hallow back. Please, just give me those guys back because at least they were entertaining to watch. These guys are just... ugh. That's all I've got to say about them. Ugh. They're not entertaining at all in this episode. Not at all. So, Sabrina eventually goes to her friend's Halloween party, which also corresponds to her birthday party since she was born on October the 31st, which corresponds to Halloween. And she just goes in this white dress that is a blatant wedding dress. But that was the only costume she could gather on a short notice, so she went in this wedding dress. Party went fine. That was not really anything. It was just fodder for the story, I suppose. Until eventually she has to leave that party to go to her dark baptism. And this is where it gets irritating but interesting. So when she enters the clearing, her wedding dress gets covered by these shadows, which turns into a dark lace gown, which I found quite cool, actually. It suited her, that's all I'm gonna say. And then, when she comes to the dark baptism, the high priest orders her to be disrobed, and quite frankly, the entire time that her aunts are taking this dress off her, he watches this with these big pedo eyes that quite frankly made me want to call 911 immediately. So, and say, yeah, we have a sex offender on the loose. Can you please help us out here? But apart from Mr. Creepy Fingers and Creepy Eyes looking at this child in a really inappropriate way, he starts this dark baptism. And he puts his finger into a bowl of, I think, either human blood or goat blood. I can't remember what it was. I think it was the witch boy's blood, which they got from the embalming that Sir Ambrose did on the body, which is even more messed up. Puts this bloody cross on her forehead and gives her these rites saying, do you believe in the Archangel Lucifer? Do you promise to hold the Dark Lord above all everything else? La la la. Everything else. And she answers, yes, I am willing. Yes, Father, that sort of thing. And during this dark baptism, these fuckers have the audacity to use certain pagan ideology when he says, "Do you swear to only be unto nature and only do right by her and yourself?" Hold on. So now this is so blatant. Oh my god. So now you're throwing together Wicca and Satanism, and it goes back to the first episode where I'm getting annoyed. Satanists are not Wiccans. Wiccans are not Satanists. Someone please enlighten these children before I give them detention. I am sick and tired of this constant ignorance about these two systems. I am a pagan and I still have to explain to people about what the difference is. And here's the difference. Wiccans do not believe in the devil. Satanists are atheists who deliberately use the image of Satan to piss off Christians. Get it into your head, people. But apparently these writers are just as stupid as the majority, because they clearly have not got the IQ needed to do substantial research. Furthermore, Sabrina gets visions. I don't know, I never really saw exactly what happened, because quite frankly I was so pissed off I wasn't paying attention. But she gets these visions and she runs from her dark baptism, to which the ground around her seems to be trying to lure her back in. They are attacking her. Nature is literally attacking her for running away, and just these vines, they grab at her feet. It's like the trees are closing in on her. It's like really messed up Snow White, and I don't even want to compare it to that, because quite frankly Snow White is so much better than this shit. And she eventually gets to a house, and everyone else in the coven follows her home. And the high priest orders her to sign the Book of the Beast, to which she says, "I will not." She blatantly refuses, to which the witches of the coven try to kill her. But Ambrose saves her by bluffing, saying that the house is protected by a protection spell that only permits the witches of the Spellman bloodline to enter. Now this is the biggest bluff ever, but the witches believe it nonetheless and just retreat. And this, after that, it just calms down a bit, until there is this blatant imagery of Satan visiting Mrs. Wardwell, or the fake Wardwell, at her home, and it's just makes me even more angry. She promised to do better and she promises him Sabrina's soul. And at that point I just thought, well, fuck you all. Fuck you all. Whoever wrote this should be seriously demoted, and his paycheck should be cut by 90%. Because whoever thought that this was a good idea is clearly not a decent writer. And it gets worse, I'm afraid, because by the time of the ending of this episode, there is an apparition or a possession of the Dark Lord within the misogynistic headmaster, while Sabrina is in his office. And the devil threatens Sabrina with burning her mortal flesh and la-di-da and la-di-da. To which, by the time the credits were rolling, I thought, this can't get any worse. Surely this can't get any worse. I have to watch 8 more episodes, and this is the load of Minotaur bollocks I'm shoved in front of? I mean, who in the hell thinks that this is a good idea? Oh yeah, we've already had Satan himself visit the demoness. We've already had that, and now we have this bollocks. You're trying, for crying out loud, the high priest actively tries to convince Sabrina that this one is of free will, that the devil is of free will. He tries to convince her that this church is not about good and evil. It's about chaos and neutrality, or neutral chaos, or something like that. And this is what you're getting shoved in front of? I mean, it's not doing him any favors. It's not doing the Church of Night any favors, and the Dark Lord must realize that he's not doing himself any favors by doing it. So why would he do this when he already knows Sabrina doesn't trust him? It's stupid. I would imagine that the devil himself would be a little bit more cunning, would have a little bit more logical thinking, and say to himself, this is not how I'm going to win this person. And the fact that he's a man, as Prudence says, the fact he won't give both freedom and power has nothing to do with it. At this point, it has completely nothing to do with it. And it's just... I'm questioning whether or not these writers were Christian or not. That's how bad some of the insults and some of the butchery of Sabrina, of all the original stories, or even of the comics itself, has gone. Because this is more about a personal agenda than about entertaining people. Netflix, I have no idea what you were thinking with this, but this is unacceptable behavior. And quite frankly, it's a waste of money. It's a waste of your money, and it's a waste of all of our valuable time. So please, in the future, do a better job if you're going to do something like this again. I hope you have enjoyed this, my little ravens, because I can't wait to be done with this, because I'm miserable. I'm fed up with it. I'm rewatching these things again just to make sure I get little details correct, so I know which notes I have to make exactly. And all I can tell you from this, there are only 1 or 2 decent episodes, and fortunately for all of us, the next episode is one of those sort of half decent, maybe not even that, episodes, and that is episode 3, which actually is kind of interesting, because you get down to some of those nitty-gritty secrets that lurk around in families. So yeah, I hope you have the patience to explore further with me and listen to me rant even more. I'm sorry that I can get so heated up, but quite frankly, in my position, I think you guys would be as well. And I think some of you adaptation... I think some of you adaptation nerds and fans will also agree with me that this is probably not the best way to do it. Yeah. This is Raven Rose. I'm signing off.